lost my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
Join me on Patreon to watch up to 5 episodes of this series and others in advance that are live right now. With that said, enjoy. Over the countless worlds seized beneath the cold, unshakable rule of King Cold and his ruthless son Frieza, their empire had swelled far beyond the comprehension of most civilizations. It wasn't just a network of planets. It was a galaxy-wide marketplace of conquest and fear. Official records spoke of over 100 worlds under their control. But to those who whispered in the shadows, the number was far greater. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. No one really knew. That was by design. The Cold Dynasty thrived on secrecy, and the rumors only deepened the dread surrounding their names. King Cold, however, was no longer the one on the throne of command. Years ago, he'd stepped back from the limelight. Retirement, for him, meant drifting just behind the curtain, watching, listening, letting his son run the show. He rarely interfered, and only when Frieza sought him out for counsel, which wasn't often. Their conversations were short, precise, and almost always revolved around their vast organization and the elite few who kept it running. Tonight was one of those rare talks. They sat together in a chamber deep within Frieza's flagship. The air was heavy with the perfume of exotic wines, tinged with sweet, almost intoxicating fragrances imported from worlds most beings had never heard of. Dim red neon light bled from strips along the curved walls, casting their pale faces in an ominous glow. No common soldier would ever be permitted to stand in this room. The only others who might attend were Kikuno and Berry Blue, Frieza's most trusted advisors, and even they knew when to keep their mouths shut. King Cold broke the silence, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. I see you've decided not to rid yourself of those Saiyans, despite the talk of a Super Saiyan possibly being born among them. Frieza's crimson eyes narrowed slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched upward, not in kindness, but in disdain. He scoffed softly, as if brushing away a piece of dust. From my understanding, father, these Saiyans are utterly insignificant compared to me. Besides, he leaned back in his hovering chair, tail curling lazily around the base. They won't be around for long? Cold tilted his head. There was genuine curiosity in his tone. His son was not a man who delayed a slaughter without reason. If Frieza intended to wipe out the Saiyan race, why not simply do it now? The king had taught him long ago, never let an enemy ripen. You've always been the cautious one, Cold reminded him. Why give them more time? You're only handing them the chance to breed a warrior who might challenge you. Frieza chuckled, a quiet, poisonous sound. Allow me to explain, Papa. I'm fully aware that no Saiyan alive or yet to be born will ever match my power. That's not the problem. His voice sharpened. The problem is that Saiyans are prideful, disgustingly so. No matter what leash you put on them, they will not remain loyal. It's only a matter of time before they revolt. Cold's eyes narrowed slightly, watching him. It matters little when they do, Frieza went on. They will lose, but they might cause inconvenient damage in the process. I'd rather replace them before that happens. His tone shifted to something more calculated, chess master-like. King Vegeta recently came across a small but intriguing race on a world called Zune, orbiting the same star as planet Vegeta. Gravity identical to the Saiyan homeworld, a nasty, forgotten place I'd nearly erased from memory, Cold grunted. They're not warriors by nature, Frieza continued, but with gravity like that, they could be trained into something useful. Much like the Saiyans, their numbers are small, which means I can mold them from scratch, breed loyalty into them. Once they've grown into a few thousand strong, I will substitute the Saiyans entirely. My army remains the same in strength and size, but without the threat of rebellion. The plan was ruthless, efficient, and patient, a rare combination for Frieza. Kikuno's earlier reminder that the Saiyans made up nearly half the Frieza force only cemented the timing. Swap them out at the right moment, and no one would notice a thing. Cold's lips curved into a slow grin. I see. Clever. Very clever. Do you have anyone on the job? Frieza's tail gave a light flick. Of course. Vegeta has been ordered to send his best to Zune. Minimal deaths. Their mission is not conquest. It is persuasion. They will join me. They will serve the Frieza Force, and they will not refuse. His eyes glinted coldly. If they do, the mission will be considered a failure. Cold leaned back, his massive frame filling the chair like a coiled serpent. It will take time for them to grow to a usable size. Missions will strain their numbers. They won't match the Saiyan population for years. I know, Frieza said simply, his voice as smooth as polished glass. I'm prepared to wait. This is a long game. Despite the enormous appetite a Saiyan was known for, food was rarely scarce on planet Vegeta. Hunting was controlled, with authorized grounds spread across the wildlands. Access required permission from the royal administration, and all kills were processed through the meat distribution centers that fed the populace. For Raditz, son of Gin, hunting was more than sport. Sometimes it was a way to earn a small reward. Sometimes it was just to bring home extra meat for his mother to prepare. Today was no different. In a grassy clearing, a massive 20-foot creature, something like an ostrich but darker than midnight, its fanged beak still open in its final breath, lay sprawled in the sunlight. Its thick black feathers shimmered faintly, the wind tugging at them. Raditz stood over the kill, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. Another clean strike from a distance. His accuracy was as effortless now as slipping on his armor. This place had become his personal training ground. Over the years, he'd used it to sharpen his aim, strengthen his strikes, and harden his instincts. And now, at just 8 years old, Raditz was already a recognized combatant, partnered with none other than Prince Vegeta himself. Fighting alongside the prince and elite warriors wasn't just an honor, it was proof that Raditz was on the path to greatness. He couldn't imagine Kakarot, his so-called younger brother, ever reaching such heights. Weak, clumsy, soft. In Raditz's mind, Prince Vegeta was the brother that mattered, the one worth standing beside in battle. The faint buzz of his scouter broke the quiet. Pip pip. Raditz, come in, came the deep voice of Nappa. Raditz tapped the device. Yo, Prince Vegeta, just let me know our awards came in with the ships. And Nappa's tone shifted, more serious now. We've got another mission. Raditz raised an eyebrow. Already, huh? Yeah, the prince told me to rest, but before I even got home, he sent new orders to be ready to launch. Raditz laughed. Guess you'll just have to nap on the way there. So, is this an ordinary mission? Or do we have special orders? Nappa's voice lowered. Special. Kill count is to be kept minimal. If we must kill, we take out the strong first, break their will, then subdue the rest. The objective is to make the people kneel before us. Once Lord Frieza arrives, they'll be placed into servitude. Direct orders from King Vegeta himself. Travel time, 312 hours. Raditz's grin widened. Gotcha, I'll be there in a second. All right, see ya. The scouter clicked silent. Without wasting another second, Raditz hoisted the massive bird-like beast over his shoulder and blasted off into the skies, leaving a ripple of dust and flattened grass in his wake. As the wind tore past him, his mind wandered to their new target world, only his second mission, and ordered not to kill. If Frieza thought they could be useful, that meant they must have some strength worth molding. Fine, strength or no strength. He'd see what they were made of. 2 minutes later, the familiar cluster of stone-built dwellings came into view, his mother's village. Raditz descended in a controlled arc and landed in front of their home with a thud, dust kicking around his boots. He pushed open the door, expecting to find Jean behind the counter, apron tied, carving meat as usual. Instead, she was nowhere to be seen. In her place, Kakarot, small, wide-eyed, and absorbed in cutting rations, worked alongside a plump Saiyan woman Raditz didn't recognize. They were clumsy, but focused. Raditz rolled his eyes. Still, he approached. The boy was so engrossed in his work that he didn't sense the shadow looming over him until the carcass slammed onto the counter with a heavy thump. The impact rattled the plates and made the woman flinch. Kakarot froze, staring at the dead beast, then up at his older brother. "Gut this," Raditz ordered curtly. "Do whatever it is you do, and when Mother gets back, tell her I'm heading out on another assignment." His voice was flat, already half turned toward the door. He'd barely stepped outside when Kakarot's voice called after him. "Raditz!" Raditz stopped, inhaling sharply. "What?" The boy hopped down from the counter, cradling the meat in his small arms, and approached. "We have enough already. This for you." He smiled faintly, hoping his brother might appreciate the gesture. Raditz's lip curled. "You think this is gonna fill me up?" His heel shot out without warning, striking Kakarot in the chest. The younger boy flew back, crashing into a chair with a wooden crack. The woman gasped and dropped her butcher knife, the blade clattering on the floor. "Weakling," Raditz sneered. "You probably couldn't hunt a beast like this if your life depended on it." Stick to freebies. He didn't wait for a reply, just launched skyward, vanishing into the clouds. Kakarot lay on the floor for a moment, stunned. He'd only wanted to be kind. Instead, he got a boot to the chest. His teeth clenched. Slowly, he pushed himself up, eyes narrowing as he caught the faintest glimmer of Raditz disappearing in the distance. "I'm not weak," he muttered, fists balling tight. Somewhere else in the village, raised voices rang out. "We're tired of you always taking our food, Pui Pui. Just because you're the strongest doesn't give you the right." Far out in the deep reaches of space, a small, dark world spun silently in the shadow of its sun. Planet Zune, once thought barren and lifeless, was now home to a strange and growing race. Only a few years ago, explorers had written it off as an empty rock, scoured by storms too fierce for anything intelligent to survive. But time proved them wrong. The Zune people had adapted. Their planet was a harsh, jagged wasteland, its skies forever dim under thick clouds that brewed deadly heat storms every few days. Winds scoured the ground with burning dust so fierce it could strip flesh from bone. The gravity here was crushing, so heavy it bent the spines of any outsider foolish enough to set foot on it. The Zune people had evolved to meet this cruelty head-on. A white, bio-armored exoskeleton encased their bodies, its layered plates crowned with spines down the back to deflect both predators and the whipping winds. Their eyes, solid yellow without pupils, could stare straight into a sandstorm without blinking, and their skulls, long and smooth like a xenomorph's crest, with rectangular ears jutting back from the sides. They were a race born for survival. Among them, one name inspired fear in every village: Pui Pui. Even as a teenager, he was far stronger than any other Zune alive. His fists could split rock, his kicks could shatter the armored carapace of his kin, and his temper was as violent as the planet's storms. He bullied freely, taking food, weapons, and even homes from anyone he pleased. If a Zune built a perfect burrow for shelter, Pui Pui would drag them out and claim it for himself without a second thought. Many had tried to challenge him. None had succeeded. Now, sitting on a jagged boulder in the center of a small settlement, Pui Pui tore into a massive 10-legged insect, its carapace snapping under his teeth as bright juice dripped down his chin. Two smaller Zune children stood before him, watching helplessly as he devoured their meal. Pui Pui's voice boomed with cruel laughter. "Oh, why don't you take it from me?" One of the children lunged, trying to snatch the bug back. Pui Pui simply lifted his arm higher, holding the prize just out of reach. "Enough!" the braver of the two shouted. Both of them kicked at his shin, their feet bouncing off his armor with a dull clack. Pui Pui didn't even flinch. His grin widened. "That tickles." Then, without warning, his arm whipped around. Smack! Backhanding both children and sending them sprawling across the dust. "Stand up to me when you're actually strong," he said, through a mouthful of food. Turning away, he laughed to himself, scanning the streets for his next source of entertainment. There wasn't much to do on Zune besides fight and other distractions. Since the day he'd been old enough to stand, Pui Pui had hunted for things to amuse him. Fighting was the best, because he always won. He took real pleasure in beating and humiliating those who dared face him. But then, "What the heck is that?" one of the children gasped. Pui Pui turned, brow furrowing. "Huh?" High above, the sky was splitting. Through the thick clouds, a massive object was burning its way down. At first glance, it could have been a meteorite. Zune saw plenty of those. But something in its shape was wrong. Too smooth, too deliberate. "What in the hell?" Pui Pui muttered, his eyes narrowing. As it drew closer, the sheen of metal caught the dim light. This was no rock. It was a ship. The children stared, their earlier fear of him momentarily forgotten. Then the air shook. Wham! As the ship hit the surface miles away, sending a tremor through the ground. Dust plumes rose into the dark horizon. The kids looked at each other, then at the direction of the crash. Curiosity warred with fear. Neither of them had ever seen anything foreign to their world other than dead meteor fragments. This was different. Finally, one of them turned to Pui Pui. "Will you bring us there? You're the only one we know who can fly." Pui Pui crossed his thick arms. "So, what's in it for me?" "We'll give you anything you want for a whole month," the first child blurted. "We won't argue or fight back, promise." "Hey, are you stupid?" the other snapped at him. But Pui Pui was already interested. He'd planned to investigate anyway. Whatever this thing was, it might be fun. And Pui Pui wanted to make sure the whole planet saw him at the center of it. If there was a fight to be had, he wanted first claim. Without another word, he grabbed both children by the hands and lifted them into the air. The ground fell away beneath them as his heavy body ascended with surprising speed. "What do you think it is?" he asked, voice half mocking. "Probably our creator," one child said with wide-eyed excitement. "Our creator?" Pui Pui almost laughed aloud. He'd never once thought about who or what had made them. He didn't care. The only thing that mattered was the thrill of a fight. And if whatever had fallen from the sky could fight, he'd welcome it. As they drew closer, it became clear they weren't alone. Dozens, no, hundreds, of Zune people were converging on the crash site. Many arrived by foot, but others descended from the air, their spined backs glinting faintly. Pui Pui touched down, letting the children go, his boots crunching into the rock. His eyes swept the crowd. "Now, what's going on here?" The air was tense. No one spoke loudly. The people just stared at the strange vessel, its metal hull hissing with heat. No hatch had opened. No being had emerged. What none of them knew was that 5 warriors sat inside, watching. In the cockpit, Prince Vegeta sat with his arms crossed, eyes sharp and calculating. Beside him, Raditz lounged casually, his long hair spilling down over his armor. 3 older Saiyans stood behind them, silent but alert, scanning the growing crowd through their monoscopes. "There are over 200 of them now," said Bruce, his voice low but steady. "Good." Prince Vegeta rose from his seat, the dark gleam in his eyes flashing beneath the dim cabin lights. "Let's greet our audience." His voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge to it. He'd been in a foul mood since the start of this assignment. When his father first spoke of the mission, he'd pictured a glorious battlefield, a world drenched in fire, opponents falling one by one until not a soul remained standing. But the moment King Vegeta revealed the actual objective, that fire dimmed. Still, maybe someone would be foolish enough to step forward. Maybe someone would get froggy, as Nappa liked to say, and try their luck. Vegeta's lips curved faintly. Yes, he could still have fun. Outside, the people of Planet Zune had gathered in a thick crowd around the landed ship. Murmurs rippled through them. Guesses, fears, and wild theories. Some dared to creep closer, running clawed fingers over the smooth metal hull. No one here had ever seen craftsmanship like this. Even with the richest metals their planet could offer, constructing something this advanced would have been impossible. To them, this ship was proof of how far behind they truly were as a civilization. Psh! A hiss of escaping pressure. The crowd froze. All sound died. Every yellow, pupilless eye locked on the source. The ramp lowered with a slow, deliberate weight. And then, 5 figures emerged. Gasps spread through the Zune like wildfire. These weren't creatures. They weren't animals. They were people. The 5 Saiyans descended in single file, boots hitting the rock with crisp precision. The air here was thick, heavy, but the gravity felt almost like home. The planet itself was alien compared to Vegeta's world. The colors muted, the wind hot and acrid, but their bodies welcomed the weight. Bruce stepped forward, his voice carrying like a command in itself. "All of you are now under the jurisdiction of Lord Frieza. He does not request, he demands your allegiance. You will work for him, serve him, and obey him. He will not be taking no for an answer. If you pledge your loyalty now, we will be on our way before he arrives. No one here needs to get hurt. Under his rule, you will live well." A low voice from the crowd cut through the silence. "The first time we see someone not of our kind, and this is what we're offered?" A tall Zune male stepped from the back, forcing his way to the front. His exoskeleton glinted in the dying sunlight. "I apologize," he said, though his tone carried no sincerity. "But we're saying no to this." Bruce's eyes narrowed. "As I said, Lord Frieza will not be taking no for an answer. Either you comply willingly, or you are taken by force." In the back of the crowd, Pui Pui hovered a foot off the ground, just high enough to see the newcomers clearly. His keen gaze swept their stances, their armor, the way they moved. There was tension in the air, thick, electric, and he knew without doubt that this would end in blood. But Pui Pui didn't jump in yet. First, he wanted to measure them. Were they worth his time? A voice roared from the front lines. We'd rather die than bow to anyone. Vegeta's smirk was thin and deadly. That's all I needed to hear. His right hand came up, index finger extending. A single spark of ki flared to life. And before the defiant Zune could even blink, a piercing beam shot forward. It punched clean through the alien's skull. The body dropped like a stone, hitting the ground with a wet thud, blood pooling fast beneath its head. Gasps and shrieks tore through the crowd. Fear crackled in the air like static. Vegeta! Sprout's head whipped toward him. We're supposed to keep deaths to a minimum. Vegeta shrugged, still smiling. Frieza wants as few deaths as possible, but that doesn't mean no deaths. A few corpses won't ruin their numbers. How dare you! A Zune warrior launched himself forward, flying straight at the prince, teeth bared. He didn't get far. Brus stepped into his path, arms snapping up. The Zune never saw it coming. One instant, his throat was clear. The next, it collided with a forearm moving faster than his eyes could track. The impact dropped him instantly, his body crumpling lifelessly to the dirt. That broke the tension. Over half the crowd surged forward at once, a wave of bodies diving at the Saiyans with wild, desperate fury. Vegeta's earlier bad mood dissolved like smoke. His grin widened. Raditz intercepted a punch from his attacker, twisting his arm to throw him off balance. In the same motion, his elbow crashed into the alien's gut, forcing a wheeze of pain. As the Zune doubled over, Raditz slammed his forehead into the alien's face with a sickening crack, then leveled his palm against his chest. At point-blank range, he fired a ki blast straight through the stomach. The body hit the dirt, smoking. Ha 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 ha! Nappa roared as 3 Zune fighters rushed him at once. 2 on the sides, 1 straight ahead. He let them all strike at once, catching the side punches effortlessly in each hand. The one in front slammed a fist into his jaw, and Nappa only laughed, his grin widening into something savage. With a sudden twist, he yanked the side fighters inward and snapped his arms up, his forearms smashing their necks. In the same motion, his leg whipped around in a heavy arc, taking the head off the one in front. 3 bodies hit the dirt almost in unison. From his vantage point, Pui Pui watched intently. Every fighter now facing the Saiyans was someone Pui Pui had beaten in the past. Some of them were considered the best warriors Zune had to offer, and yet these strangers were dismantling them like nothing. It was clear now, these intruders were strong, maybe even strong enough to challenge him. His eyes darted over the Saiyans, studying them. Raditz was clearly the weakest, powerful, but not on the same level as the others. But Pui Pui wasn't looking for an easy kill, not at first. If he wanted to show these strangers who ruled this planet, he'd have to take down one of their bigger names first. Pui Pui, help them! The desperate shout came from a woman in the crowd. It was rare anyone called on him for help. They feared him almost as much as they feared outsiders. But when survival was on the line, pride took a back seat. A slow, confident smile spread across his face. Oh, my name's been called, huh? And with a sudden burst of power, Pui Pui shot into action. And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.